Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 10 based on novel. So let's start. Dragon roars shook the heavens. Numerous green dragon light tattoos soared one after another as 100 dragons roared together. A powerful pressure unfurled, causing the countless demonic beasts within the entire Deep Lightning Mountain range to tremble. Every gaze on Deep Lightning Mountain was suffused with shock as they looked at the skinny young man surrounded 100 green dragon light tattoos. All of them could clearly detect a boundless power within each green dragon light tattoo, and the union of 100 terrified them. They were really unable to imagine how the frail body of a human could contain such frightening power. This pressure did indeed originate from the dragon tribe. Could the young man before their eyes be related to the dragon tribe, one of the 4 overlord tribes? Amazing. There was a serious look in Chen Tong and the rest's eyes as they looked at the scene before them. They immediately exchanged glances and grinned. Only at this moment did they clearly understand how comical their doubt towards Lin Dong was that night. Moreover, they finally understood why Lin Dong had said those seemingly exceptionally arrogant words that he and his brother were enough to deal with the matter of Deep Lightning Mountain that night. It turned out that he indeed had the right to say so. Xu Shong's steps had finally paused at this moment. He looked at the 100 green dragon light tattoos swirling around Lin Dong as a grave expression appeared in those tiger eyes. The dragon tribe's body tempering martial arts, huh? This is going to be interesting. Xu Shong's scarlet tongue licked his lips while a baleful aura surged in his eyes. However, regardless of how powerful the techniques you have are, your strength is merely at the initial profound death stage. Xu Shong took a big step forward, transforming into a flash of black light as he shot forward. Along the way, the ground split open. The huge cracks were like a darkness tiger that was tearing the ground apart, roaring as it charged at Lin Dong. Is that so? A green dragon occupied Lin Dong's eyes. Although his body was thin, his aura was like the boundless sea as he stepped forward. Crack! Enormous cracks spread to a 10,000 feet large radius in a spiderweb-like fashion while the air exploded. All everyone could see was green light ripping through space. In the next moment, the green and black light figures had already collided with at the mountaintop. Bang! A shock wave formed by both green and black instantly erupted. Mountains were blasted into smithereens while large areas of lush green forests were flattened. Countless figures floated in the air. Their eyes were shocked as they looked down upon the mess below. After which, they looked to the source of the shock wave where a huge pit had appeared. 2 figures stood the center of the pit with their fists touching each other. A frightening and almost corporeal energy wave spread, causing an extremely distorted feeling to appear within space itself. Lin Dong did not even take a step back in this head-on clash. A draw? Countless people violently gasped in their hearts. Although Lin Dong was able to receive Xu Shong's attacks in their previous clash, he was clearly at a disadvantage. After all, no matter how one put it, he was merely an initial profound death stage expert while this Xu Shong was at the peak of the perfect profound death stage. According to common sense, a direct clash between a profound death stage expert and Xu Shong would likely lead to the former's body bursting into bloody foam. However, the strength of Lin Dong's physical body had clearly reached a rather frightening level. Brat, you really do possess some ability. Xu Shong grinned and spoke in a sinister manner as he looked at the young man before him, whose body was surrounded by green light tattoos while a green dragon occupied his eyes. You are not bad either. Lin Dong smiled. The desire to fight surged like an erupting volcano within his pitch-black eyes. This was the first time he had truly clashed directly against an expert of this level, causing his blood to boil slightly. Xu Shong was considered to be extremely close to the Samsara stage. This was a level that was once practically invincible in Lin Dong's eyes. But now, he was approaching it step by step. He believed that there will finally come a day when he would truly be able to match an expert at this level. At that time, Lin Dong would return to the Eastern Xian region. He would let the entire Eastern Xian region learn that the person who had been chased by the Yuan Gate until he had to flee the Eastern Xian region like a homeless stray, had once again come charging back. Old dogs of the Yuan Gate, just you wait. Surging battle desire rose within Lin Dong's eyes. Soon after, he smiled ferociously at Xu Song. Now, I shall use all of you as my whetstone. Roar! 100 green dragon-like tattoos roared as they swirled around Lin Dong and a punch was thrown. This punch seemed to contain the surging fighting intent within his body. Green Dragon Heavenly Seat Seal. 100 green dragon-like tattoos condensed under Lin Dong's fist. Before stepping into the profound death stage, only 50 green dragon-like tattoos could be formed in Lin Dong's body. After a breakthrough and experiencing the cleansing of the Death Flame Spirit Pool in the Divine Flame Hall, his strength had clearly soared once again. The punch caused the entire Deep Lightning Mountain to tremble. That force seemed to be able to destroy the world. The green light reflected in Xu Song's eyes grew brighter while the expression in his eyes became increasingly grave. At this very moment, he finally withdrew the all-contempt he had in his heart. Dark Abyss Universe Palm. Xu Song took a couple of steps back as monstrous Yuan power rumbled out like an ocean. A huge black tiger formed above his fists. It moved in a strange fashion and its huge mouth seemed to contain the universe. Roar! A tiger roared and a dragon howled. Subsequently, two frighteningly powerful attacks once again whizzed forward. Immediately, the entire land shook due to the shocking clash. Many pairs of eyes contained horror as they looked at the two figures in battle. This battle had already reached an extremely violent level. Since the very beginning, it was likely that no one could have imagined that this skinny-looking young human would actually be able to fight against a renowned demon commander of the Beast War region to such an extent. Regardless of whether this battle ended in victory or defeat, Lin Dong's name would definitely spread throughout the Beast War region after this battle. Roar! A blood-red light tiger roared at the heavens while Little Flame's body swept forth like a flash of blood-red light. A 10,000 feet boulder was grabbed by his hand. Subsequently, it was used as a weapon and thrown ruthlessly towards the Black Shadow in an insane manner. Bang bang bang. The Black Shadow was also unusually ferocious. Punch after punch was thrown, shattering the 10,000 feet large boulder piece by piece as rock fragments flew across the sky. In the next moment, the two figures heavily collided together. Bang! Space distorted and two figures shot backwards. After which, two mountains were completely shattered and rock fragments filled the sky. The two figures had already charged at each other again before ruthlessly clashing. The fight in another part of the sky also appeared extremely intense. However, one of the lead actors, Qinsha, had unexpectedly suffered somewhat. This puppet did not show any signs of dodging when faced with his attacks. Moreover, regardless of how fierce Qinsha's attacks were, he was unable to see any damage appear on the puppet's body. His offense was completely useless. Yet, he needed to use all his strength to defend against a counterattack by the sky-devouring corpse. Fortunately, these attacks was unable to force him into an overly sorry state despite being rather powerful. Nevertheless, this fight was stifling no matter what he did. This wretched thing! Qinsha involuntarily roared. Soon after, his offense suddenly became even more intense. However, the sky-devouring corpse remained indifferent. Its body moved rapidly, eating all of his attacks before retaliating. This puppet is really strange. All I can do is let Xu Song quickly finish off that brat. Qinsha's complexion was ashen. He finally understood that it was impossible for a victor to emerge in this fight with the puppet. Moreover, it was clearly to his disadvantage if this battle dragged on. Although he was a demonic beast, he would eventually tire. Yet, this puppet would not, therefore, he would sooner or later have to flee miserably if the fight dragged on in this manner. Hence, all he could do was pray that Xu Song would be able to finish off Lin Dong as soon as possible. However, with such thoughts in mind, his pupils shrunk when glanced at the frightening battle below as unease began to rise in his heart. He had begun to regret agreeing to intervene this time around. This Lin Dong, who had suddenly appeared, was clearly someone extraordinary. Bang! Lin Dong's eyes had become somewhat burning because of his surging desire to fight. His body shot forward like lightning and both of his fists were thrown forward. The force that accompanied every punch of his contained the power of 100 green dragon-like tattoos. With the increase in his strength and proficiency in the green heaven materialized dragon skill, the green dragon-like tattoos that his body formed had also become increasingly concentrated. It no longer disappeared with every punch he threw like in the past. Currently, as long as he had sufficient yuan power, his attacks would remain at the level of 100 green dragon-like tattoos. At this level, the so-called exquisite techniques were basically useless. One could easily break through them with sheer force. This was a type of absolute strength. Two light figures crossed each other while everyone watched as the land collapsed. Subsequently, two figures shot backwards. Their feet thrust into the ground, creating a 10,000 feet long scar. What an intense fight! Many pairs of eyes looked at the two figures which had shot backwards. At this moment, the clothes on Lin Dong's and Xu Shong's body were in tatters. Their extremely strong bodies were covered with bloody wounds, and even their breathing had become much heavier because of the intense exchange. Drip. Blood dripped down Xu Shong's arm. His eyes were scarlet and ferocious as he stared at Lin Dong and smiled in an eerie manner. It has been a long time since I have had such an enjoyable time exchanging blows with another. Lin Dong also smiled at him. His smile was equally ferocious. You should know that I am from the Dark Abyss Tiger tribe, right? Xu Shong lifted his hand. He looked at his bloody hand and suddenly asked. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes. Why does it matter? I wonder if you have heard. The scarlet red in his eyes became even redder. Soon after, he slowly lay on the ground as waves of black light rippled from his body. After which, everyone watched as his body swelled at a shocking rate. Tough needle-like black tiger fur swiftly appeared while his hands and feet began to turn into sharp tiger paws. Within a short span of time, a 10,000 feet tall grey giant tiger appeared on Deep Lightning Mountain. A layer of grey scale armor covered the body of the giant tiger. Meanwhile, many enormous grey bone thorns extended from his back, turning into a pair of bone wings that flickered with sharp cold light. A terrifyingly brutal aura soared towards the sky at this moment. The huge tiger stood on the mountaintop and roared at Lin Dong. The frightening sound wave caused many huge cracks to appear. Contained within the tiger roar was an astonishing murderous intent as it resounded across the land. This is... The eyes of Chen Tong's group suddenly shrunk upon seeing this scene. The Dark Abyss Tiger tribe's final combat form. Dark Abyss Heavenly Tiger Body. This Xu Shong has finally been pushed to this step. The 10,000 feet large giant tiger released an extended roar towards the sky. A dreadful sound wave spread, causing the land to crumble. Even dark clouds had gathered in the sky because of the terrifying fiendish aura. The giant tiger was like the destroyer of the world, while its giant scarlet eyes were filled with a frightening murderous intent. The numerous floating figures in the nearby sky hurriedly withdrew. They would surely die if they were implicated in a fight of this level. He has actually pushed Xu Shong to such an extent. The expressions on several people's faces were quite amazed as they pulled back. Xu Shong was from the Dark Abyss Tiger tribe, hence his fighting strength was extremely astonishing. This final combat form was usually only used to deal with Demon Commander level opponents. Yet, some looked towards the skinny figure in the distance. Even though he appeared extremely tiny in the face of Xu Shong's 10,000 feet large body, no one dared to underestimate him. Even Xu Shong had ceased doing so. The battle before their eyes was a rare sight seen even in the Beast War region. He has even pulled out his Dark Abyss Heavenly Tiger body. Qinsha, who was hard-pressed by the sky-devouring corpse, glanced over. Soon after, his eyes quickly hardened. There was a grave expression and shock in his eyes as he looked at Lin Dong from afar. That brat, is he really so strong? What an abnormal existence. Qinsha was similarly one of the 8 great demon commanders. Conflicts frequently broke out between 100 Beast Ridge and Deep Lightning Mountain, and both of them had also clashed before. Hence, he was well aware of how powerful Xu Shong was after activating this Dark Abyss Heavenly Tiger body. Only a handful of people in the entire Beast War region could force him to use this technique. Just where did this fellow come from? Not only does he possess such a powerful dragon tribe body tempering technique, he even has a puppet that is so difficult to deal with. Qinsha's eyes flickered. Regret had already started to rise within his heart. He had only agreed to intervene because he heard that they were only dealing with little flame. Who could have foreseen that a ferocious individual like Lin Dong would pop out from nowhere? Lin Dong lifted his head and looked at the enormous and terrible beast that could crush a mountain. He could detect an extremely dangerous sensation from the latter's body. Evidently, the current Shusong had already pushed his battle power to the limit. The demon commander did indeed live up to his reputation. Lin Dong, it is an honor for you to die at the hands of this king's dark abyss heavenly tiger body. The giant tiger lowered its head as those blood-red eyes stared at Lin Dong. In the next instant, it opened its mouth and an energy ripple, which caused one's scalp to turn numb, gathered, before a ray of grey light immediately shot forth. The grey light beam directly penetrated through empty space. Everyone could only see a grey light flash in the sky. Subsequently, a light beam that contained destructive fluctuations mercilessly blasted Lin Dong's body. Bang! A deep sound appeared as the land instantly crumbled. The skinny figure flew backwards, shattering a couple of mountains along the way. He only came to a stop after slamming into the 10th mountain. Everyone looked at the row of mountains that had been blown apart while the skin on their heads felt as if it was about to burst. Was this Shusong's power after unleashing the dark abyss heavenly tiger body? It had actually reached such terrifying levels. The previous blow would likely instantly seriously injure even an ordinary perfect profound death stage expert to the point where the latter would lose all ability to fight. I wonder if that Lin Dong is still alive. All eyes gathered on the ruins of a certain mountain. A moment later, they saw a hand was extend from within the boulders. It pushed aside the surrounding boulders as a somewhat ragged figure appeared. As expected of the Dark Abyss Tiger tribe, Lin Dong lifted his head in front of the many stunned pairs of eyes. A trace of blood had appeared at the corner of his mouth while a human head-sized scarlet-red cauldron floated above his shoulder. There was a fist-sized dent on the cauldron. He used the cauldron to block that certain kill strike her. Several people looked at the scarlet-red light cauldron as surprise flashed across their eyes. But it is not as overwhelming as I imagined. Lin Dong's black eyes suddenly turned serious. His body moved and he rushed forward like a phantom. With a clench of his hand, the lightning emperor scepter appeared once again as thunder clouds quickly whistled over in the sky. Bang! Lightning surged on the lightning emperor scepter as 9 lightning dragons separated from the top of the scepter as if they had been revived. They rushed forward with lightning speed and ruthlessly smashed into the giant dull grey tiger. Bang bang bang! The lightning dragons exploded and lightning danced all over Shusong's giant body. However, it appeared to be unable to break that layer of mysterious dull grey scales. You think you can break this king's dark abyss armor with an attack of this level? A mocking laughter was emitted from Shusong's huge mouth. Immediately, his tiger eyes turned cold. Another black light ray shot out with lightning speed and ruthlessly smashed towards Lin Dong. Lin Dong rapidly retreated when he saw this as the burning sky cauldron immediately swelled in front of him. This attack of Shusong's was indeed quite powerful. Even Lin Dong did not dare to casually receive it with his body. Clang! A metallic sound reverberated across the place and the burning sky cauldron was immediately sent flying backwards. Another dent appeared on its surface, causing Lin Dong's eyes to narrow. He was well aware of the defensive strength of the burning sky cauldron. It was not a simple feat to leave such a mark on it. Bam! Lin Dong grasped the lightning emperor scepter as his toes suddenly pushed off the burning sky cauldron. In a flash, he appeared above Shusong. The lightning emperor scepter in his hand turned into an extremely powerful scepter shadow as it smashed onto the latter's giant body like a storm. Green dragon-like tattoos circled around each scepter shadow. These attacks were exceptionally fierce. Clang clang! Sparks spluttered on Shusong's huge body. However, his dull grey scale armor did not budge. It was as though it was the strongest defense in the world. Ha ha, the current you is as comical as a clown. Shusong laughed loudly. The bone wings on his back were so sharp that they seemed to be capable of cutting space as they whizzed forward and ruthlessly sliced at Lin Dong. Numerous gazes watched the situation start to change again as they involuntarily smacked their lips together. What a frightening defense Xu Song has. The strongest techniques of the Dark Abyss Tiger tribe are the Dark Abyss Heavenly Tiger Body and the Dark Abyss Armor. If Lindong is unable to break this defense, it will be impossible for him to hurt Xu Song and it will be meaningless to continue fighting. It is not easy to break the Dark Abyss Armor. When Qinshe and Xu Song exchanged blows back then, the former spent an entire day wildly smashing Xu Song's Dark Abyss Armor to no avail. Finally, their fight ended in a draw. This Lindong is really out of luck. However, it was not easy for him to push Xu Song to such an extent. Clang! The Lightning Emperor scepter ruthlessly smashed onto Xu Song's huge body. A shocking force spread back towards him, causing his arm to feel somewhat numb. His expression was also a little grave. It was evidently not as easy to deal with Xu Song as he had expected. Swoosh! Sharp bone wings rushed at him with lightning speed while Lindong quickly retreated. However, a strand of hair was still cut by that sharp aura. After activating the Dark Abyss Heavenly Tiger Body, Xu Song's offense and defense had risen substantially. What a troublesome Dark Abyss Armor! Lindong withdrew as he observed Xu Song below, who appeared to be covered in a turtle shell-like armor, and muttered. Lindong, are you going to give up like this? Xu Song's tiger eyes contained ridicule as they stared at Lindong. The way the latter had jumped and fled like an ant caused him to be extremely pleased in his heart. Lindong looked at Xu Song and frowned slightly as he spoke in a flat voice. It is too early for you to be happy. Is that so? Xu Song heartily laughed towards the sky. You can't even break my defense. What else can you do? Lindong slightly narrowed his eyes. Soon after, his gaze swept across Xu Song's enormous body, which was covered by the Dark Abyss Armor. Without replying, essence blood flew out from the tip of his finger as a mysterious light formation quickly appeared in his palm. The essence blood entered the light formation and rumbling was emitted from it. Soon after, everyone watched the light formation expand at a frightening speed. Within a short period, it had reached 10,000 feet in size. It covered the sky and looked extremely astonishing. Xu Song lifted his head to look at the huge formation as bewilderment flashed in his eyes. Ancient Universe Formation. The universe is the heaven and earth. Universe reversal, split heaven and earth. The seals formed by Lindong's hands changed like lightning while the light formation in the sky began to rotate in the reverse direction. Waves of unique fluctuations began to gather like a storm within it. Buzz. The light formation shook. Soon after, a huge light pillar came raging downwards. Subsequently, it enveloped Xu Song's giant body. The light pillar covered him. Soon after, everyone's pupils shrunk. They could see that the layer of Dark Abyss armor covering Xu Song's body, which could block the fully powered attacks of any perfect profound death stage expert, was actually being disintegrated at a frightening pace at this moment. Moreover, while the Dark Abyss armor was being disintegrated, the thick baleful aura around Xu Song also rapidly disappeared. How can this be? Everyone were alarmed. How is this possible? Xu Song was also greatly startled. Under the light pillar, he felt as though even the Yuan power within his body was gradually being disintegrated. Let me see just what you can use to block me now. Lindong's face had suddenly turned ferocious at this moment. His body charged forward and he clenched his hand while 100 green dragon-like tattoos gathered. Following which, a punch was ruthlessly thrown at Xu Song's body, which had lost the protection of the Dark Abyss armor. Bang! A low and deep sound spread and Xu Song immediately released a sharp and miserable screech. His 10,000 feet large body directly flew backwards, smashing many mountains in the process. The light array rotated in the sky and the light pillar once again enveloped Xu Song. Weren't you extremely arrogant just now? Lindong's body appeared behind Xu Song in a ghost-like fashion. His leg wiggled and turned into a green dragon claw that violently whipped at Xu Song. Bang! The huge tiger was kicked and sent flying again. Boiling hot blood sprinkled onto the ground like bloody rain. Come on, scream for me again. Lindong bathed within the blood that filled the sky as his mouth cracked upon to form a grin. Those sinisterly white teeth made others feel a chill in their hearts. Soon after, his body moved and he lifted a huge mountain. He held it with both of his hands, holding the tip of the mountain as he ruthlessly smashed it down onto Shusong's huge body like a giant hammer. Bang bang bang. Low and deep sounds echoed and the atmosphere of the entire area froze. Everyone watched as the mountain ruthlessly smashed onto Shusong's body again and again, while miserable tiger screams continuously emerged, cursing the young man. At this moment, their faces were completely blank. Going to keep screaming? Bang! Still going to scream again? Bang! Chen Tong's group was petrified as they watched this scene from far away. The huge mountain was just like a large hammer. It had an extremely stunning effect as it ruthlessly smashed onto Shusong's huge body while miserable tiger roars continued to resound in the sky. Everyone's expressions was undoubtedly somewhat stiff as they watched this scene. It was only a moment later before they finally recovered. Yet they felt some disbelief. Who could have imagined that Shusong, who just moments ago occupied the advantageous position, would be reduced to such a state in the blink of an eye? How did it turn out like this? Chen Tong's group was petrified as they mumbled. A long while later, their eyes suddenly looked towards the huge light formation in the sky. The light pillar covered Shusong, and each time majestic yuan power surged out from Shusong's body, it would be disintegrated by the light pillar. Is that formation the cause of the rapid fall in Shusong's fighting strength? Everyone's eyes flashed as they came to a sudden comprehension. Immediately, they felt some fear in their hearts. Just what was this light formation? It was actually so powerful. Not only was it able to disintegrate the unusually powerful Dark Abyss armor on Shusong's body, but it could even disintegrate the yuan power in the latter's body. What a terrifying person! Although everyone was unfamiliar with that light formation, it did not hinder them from feeling shocked by Lin Dong's current crazy actions. Bang! The mountain in Lin Dong's hand was finally unable to endure the tremendous force and finally exploded. Below, blood drenched Shusong's entire body. Numerous bloody wounds were exposed on his body and even white bone could be seen. Lin Dong casually threw aside the remnant boulder in his hand. He panted a little before taking a look at the unusually miserable Shusong, whose body was covered in fresh blood. It was not that the latter did not wish to resist, but the ancient universe formation had suppressed the yuan power within his body. In other words, Lin Dong had turned him into an ordinary giant beast that had no power to resist for that short span of time. Only with the advancement of Lin Dong's strength to the profound death stage was he able to use the ancient universe formation to achieve such a suppression. If it was in the past, the ancient universe formation was only able to disintegrate a portion of this energy. In other words, it would be impossible to reach the level where it could completely suppress a peak-level perfect profound death stage expert. Such ability was considered an abnormality. After all, just imagining how it could turn a powerful opponent into someone who could barely use any of the yuan power within his body was enough to know just how frightening this was. Although this was only for a short period, most of the time, it was basically able to decide the victor of the fight. Of course, this ability might be powerful, but if it failed to lock onto a target, it was basically impossible to activate it. Earlier, Shusong had been caught in this formation because he was careless and was unable to fully comprehend its usage. Soon after, he turned from a lively tiger into a foolish beast who could do nothing but receive a beating. Lin Dong was evidently extremely well versed in adding insult to injury. He took advantage of this opening and directly beat the originally proud and awe-inspiring Shusong into an incomparably miserable state. The huge formation in the sky began to shake and the light pillar covering Shusong turned illusory. Despite the great power of the ancient universe formation, it was still not an easy task to completely suppress a peak-perfect profound death stage expert. Is it unable to suppress him any longer? Lin Dong merely smiled faintly when he saw this scene. Soon after, he walked towards the giant dull grey tiger. The latter's scarlet-red tiger eyes were filled with bitterness and fear. I'll just have to cripple you first. Lin Dong's footsteps paused in front of Shusong. With a clench of his hand, the lightning emperor scepter appeared in a flash. Thunderbolts crazily surged on it. Soon after, his eyes hardened. He did not hesitate at all as the lightning emperor scepter in his hand ruthlessly stabbed at Xu Shong's giant body. Wail! A mournful screech immediately sounded while lightning crazily flickered on Xu Shong's body. His enormous figure began to shrink rapidly. A moment later, he turned back into human form. The lightning emperor scepter had pierced through his shoulder while fresh blood flowed from the wound. Lin Dong grabbed and pulled out the lightning emperor scepter. Subsequently, the scepter was ruthlessly swung at Xu Shong's body. An enormous force sent the latter flying 1,000 feet backwards. You have lost. Lin Dong was indifferent as he gazed upon the deathly pale Xu Shong to his front. The latter's aura was already relatively weak. It was obvious that Lin Dong had managed to severely injure him earlier. He no longer had any strength to fight. The victor of this battle had already been decided. All eyes gathered and an uproar soon followed. No one could have imagined that this battle would actually have such a dramatic result. General Meng Shan and Tian Yi had completely pale faces. The former in particular was even paler than his counterpart. His entire body broke out in cold sweat the moment he thought of how he had attempted to capture Lin Dong back then. Fortunately, Lin Dong had not retaliated. Otherwise, it was likely that he would not even have the opportunity to escape. Blood was spat out from Xu Shong's mouth under the many watching eyes. He resentfully stared at Lin Dong and laughed coldly. You do have many tricks. However, do you think you are a match for this king if we were to really engage in a direct fight? All tricks are considered strength in a life-or-death battle. You are after all a demon commander. At the very least, you should not speak such laughable words, right? Lin Dong's eyes watched Xu Shong in a strange fashion as he retorted. Xu Shong was speechless. However, the bitter resentment in his eyes did not diminish. It's about time for the victor of the battle there to be decided. Lin Dong ignored Xu Shong. He lifted his head to look at the distant sky where monstrous bloodlight was spreading. A tiger roar resounded across the sky as bloodlight gushed out and a black figure also ended up flying backwards. Finally, it left a 10,000 feet deep scar on the ground. Bang! A blood-red light figure descended from the sky. At this moment, Little Flame was in a half-beast combat form. Many bloody wounds covered his body as fresh blood flowed, causing his originally ferocious face to appear even more terrifying. He had clearly experienced a relatively intense battle earlier. Little Flame took a huge step forward, grabbed the now equally frail Shadow Guard and tossed him towards Xu Shong. His face was malicious. Do you still recall what I said to you when you snatched half of my essence blood inheritance back then? I said that it belongs to me and you will eventually return it. Xu Shong glanced at the Shadow Guard who had been tossed to his side. The expression in his eyes was dark as he wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth. Little Flame had indeed said this back then. However, would the Xu Shong from back then even give a second glance to a Little Flame who had only just reached the profound life stage? At that time, Little Flame was perhaps akin to an ant in his eyes. He had simply ignored the provocations of an ant. Who could have imagined that the ant from back then would ultimately manage to overthrow him? Hand over the essence blood inheritance. Lin Dong looked at Xu Shong and softly said. Xu Shong wiped off the blood on his face as he darkly stared at the Lin Dong duo. Soon after, he stood up while grabbing the Shadow Guard beside him. He then lifted his head and looked at the countless pairs of eyes around. Never would have imagined that he, one of the 8 great demon commanders, would actually end up in such a miserable state. Ha ha, I am a demon commander. It will be far too embarrassing for me to be defeated by you. Xu Shong's voice was a little hoarse as he muttered. Do you still intend to struggle? Little Flame sneered. Xu Shong turned his head to look at Lin Dong and Little Flame. Suddenly, he laughed. Are all of you curious about this Shadow Guard? Lin Dong frowned slightly. I will let all of you see his true appearance. Xu Shong's lips parted into a smile that was rather distorted. Next, he pulled off the black robe that covered the body of the Shadow Guard and a familiar face appeared in everyone's sights. That is Xu Shong. The entire place was silent. Following which, many exclamations sounded. This was because the Shadow Guard's appearance was exactly the same as Xu Shong's. However, the latter's eyes seemed to be hollow. Was it a puppet? This is my twin brother. However, I forcibly snatched his life force at birth, hence causing him to be extremely weak the moment he was born. Subsequently, he died due to poor health while he was gradually growing up. As Shusong stroked the shadow guard's face with his hand, one could feel a chill originating from within the bone while looking at his smile. After his death, I used a secret technique to refine him into a ghost body that shares my life. Although this secret technique was vicious, it does have a benefit. I managed to turn the energy of this ghost body into my own. Actually, this body is a cauldron that I have reared, something that was born from my biological brother. The entire place was silent. Several people's expression had changed slightly after hearing these words. Shusong's viciousness had exceeded everyone's expectations. Now, it is time for this brother of mine to repay me. Shusong grinned as many bloody lines suddenly spread outwards from under his feet. They appeared like a blood formation that covered both himself and the shadow guard. Like a blade, his hand was stabbed into the chest of the shadow guard. Blood gushed out and the shadow guard's body quickly withered. At the same time, Shusong's aura also swelled at an extremely terrifying speed. He had reached the boundary of the samsara stage. A frightening airwave swept out in a crazy fashion, stopping anyone from approaching. This bastard! Little Flame's expression was alarmed and furious as he watched this scene. Clearly, he did not expect that such an unforeseen event would occur. Shusong is actually about to break into the samsara stage. Numerous exclamations sounded in the vicinity. They could sense an aura that made breathing difficult rapidly taking shape. Big brother, what do we do? Little Flame looked towards Lindong and asked in a deep voice. Lindong's expression was indifferent as he looked at the devil-like Shusong laughing wildly at the sky while an almost solid murderous intent flashed across his eyes. Soon after, he slowly lifted his hand under the many watching eyes and curled two of his fingers. A pitch-black color appeared on one finger while resplendent silver appeared on the other, and there even seemed to be lightning overflowing from the silver finger. Brothers should not be used in such a manner. Bright red blood continuously dripped from between Lindong's fingers while his complexion rapidly paled. Two vague and ancient tiny symbols appeared to have surfaced at his fingertips. Hence, you should die. After Lindong's soft voice sounded, a blood-red light ray suddenly shot out from between his fingers. Black light and lightning intertwined within the fresh blood. These two energies were perfectly compatible like yin and yang. Plop! The ray of blood-red light shot straight forward, easily shattering the frightening energy around Shusong. Blood-red light flashed and the ray of light directly penetrated his forehead. The ferocious smile on Shusong's face suddenly froze at this moment. This video will end here.